and welcome to Promo Insiders, an ASI media podcast that covers the issues that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm Chris Ruvo for ASI, and today we'll be discussing one of the biggest challenges confronting the promotional products industry, and that's supply chain disruption. Disruption that's led to everything from lack of inventory depth to higher product prices. My guest today is an expert on the topic. He's Jeff Nannis, President and CEO of AAA Innovations, a promo supplier based in New Jersey. Like many suppliers, Jeff has been on the front lines dealing with the supply chain woes, trying to balance servicing distributors while handling the upheaval in global production. Jeff, thanks for being with me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in here. I think the big top question is, what are some of these issues that suppliers are facing right now?
Well, thanks, Chris. As we've talked about, really the big issue right now is ocean cargo. It's moving merchandise once it's made in China, since most of the suppliers in our industry are importing from China. Although the supply chain issues and ocean cargo issues are much broader. It's a global issue. It's not China. It's everywhere. If you were manufacturing in the rest of Southeast Asia or Europe or even South America, these same ocean cargo issues apply. And that's really the issue. The issue is that supply is limited and the demand has exploded.
Okay.
So that there's a need for more steamships and more containers, and you just can't get them.
Okay, and most people should know this already, but let's just make it super novice real quick, right? We make most of our stuff that we sell here in our industry and many other industries over there, right, overseas, and we have to get it here. Getting it here by air is extremely cost prohibitive, and so most stuff comes by sea. And there's just with coronavirus starting, thankfully, to curtail and economic activity coming back, right? We're just seeing huge demand for those shipping containers, as you say, and there's just not enough space.
Right. Well, the issue is global freight in general, and it's not just limited to ocean cargo. Most of us in the promotional business use ocean cargo as our main the main way to bring our goods from overseas here. But depending on the kinds of merchandise that you have, air cargo is an option as well, or it used to be.
Okay.
But since there are no planes, no commercial planes going back and forth, so there's much more limited planes going, and there's much less air cargo to put your goods on. And as the price of ocean cargo and the delays of ocean cargo increase, it's put pressure on air freight. Air freight, as of today, has quadrupled in the last 6 months. So
4 times greater than it was 6 months ago.
4 times greater. We used to pay around $3 a kilo, and we're paying over $12 a kilo right now to bring in goods. And that's just an air freight. And the same phenomenon's happening with ocean cargo. The prices of ocean cargo today are literally 4 times what they were in December.
Okay. All right, Jeff, you and I have talked quite a bit on this issue. And one of the other things I've heard you and others bring up as well is the issue of raw material costs, too. Is that, can you kind of explain how that factors into this whole equation?
Sure. It's the total package. Everything that could be increasing in price is happening all at the same time. So raw materials, wood, steel, packaging materials, all of those materials are going up. So we've seen across the board increases in prices, which we would say first class. So our direct price from overseas, they're up anywhere between 5 and 7 or 5 and 8% to start with. Compounding that, we have tariffs on most items, and the tariffs range up to 25%. So you have the increased costs, we have tariffs, and now the icing on the cake is these crazy ocean cargo costs.
All right, so it's as you say, it is a perfect storm of factors that suppliers are dealing with. Or really anybody. We should emphasize, of course, that this is not promo specific, and I think that's something everybody needs to understand. This is across industries. This is affecting everybody.
Oh yes. The anecdote that I heard from a a company called C.H. Robinson. They're the largest freight forwarder of ocean cargo from China to the U.S. One of the operations folks was telling me a couple of weeks ago that Nike was in such need to bring in goods. They were so behind the eight ball that they literally bought 300 containers on one steamship. And they bring the goods from China to LA. Yeah. And in December, they would have paid about $1,800 per container. And 2 weeks ago, they paid $17,000 times 300. So they paid $5.1 million for one set of ocean cargo containers to come from China to the U.S. just because they needed the goods. They were in such demand. Oh my gosh! Well,
there's nothing to add to that. That illustrates the gravity of the situation that we're dealing with. Yeah. So
well, the problem is for those people who had goods planned and booked on those steamships that were lower priced than the $17,000 container, we got taken off that boat because the steamships say, "Well, I have 300 containers at $17,000, and your containers at $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever." And so they make a business decision so that even though you have a confirmed booking on a vessel and you've told your clients when the goods are coming in, you literally don't get loaded because the more expensive container gets loaded.
Total instability is what that results in. So just quickly, I want to give a little historical perspective on this, and we don't have to go all through all the ins and outs, but just when did this all kind of start and what precipitated it?
So it really started, we started seeing it in December, that every year, I've been with AAA 29 years, every year we sign a contract with the steamship companies or a freight forwarder that we guarantee a certain amount of containers that we'll import, and we have a contract rate. Well, in December, for the first time ever, the steamship companies were not honoring the contract rate. They were basically saying that at that rate, we can't put you on the boat. Okay. And we plan our inventory, we plan our pricing based on a contract rate. So we know exactly this is what the item costs, this is what the duty and tariff costs, and here's what our ocean freight, our ocean cargo costs are. So we can put that all together, and we know how to put together prices to our customers.
Right.
So what first happened is we just didn't get on boats.
Okay.
And then when we figured out that we were in trouble, we asked the $1 million question: how much does it cost to get on the boats? And we literally had 100 containers in early January, right before the CNY, that were stuck in China. We couldn't get them out. Oh my gosh. We finally just had to pay whatever the costs were to get them moved.
Because if you don't have product, you don't have business. So it becomes the cost of doing business at that point.
Well, for goods that are going into inventory and we have such huge our cost increases, you can pass those on to the customer, or at least some of them, and say, hey, our new price for 2021 is this. But for those distributors that are importing custom items, they have a prearranged price. We don't feel comfortable going back to the customer and saying, well, I know we quoted you based on this, but now all of a sudden these prices are up and we need you now to pay a different price. We have a contract with our customer that we honor, even if steamship companies won't honor their contract.
That's incredible, and I should add to anybody who might be watching or listening this on the live broadcast, please type your comments in, and we'll questions, whatever you might have, and Jeff, or if I can myself, we'll try to answer those questions. So Jeff, let's jump to another one here. You've kind of detailed this to a degree already. It sounds like things are getting worse, and if that is so, what's driving that kind of increase in the bad?
Well, one, I think things really slowed down to a crawl a year ago when COVID really hit and companies stopped doing business. People went home. The country basically closed and took a pause. And retailers, importers, everybody stopped bringing in goods and let their inventories get lower based on the new normal. And as the economy, as the COVID-19 had started to find some solutions, as they had the vaccines and people were feeling better, everybody started buying more in anticipation.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, the demand for containers and for ocean cargo space outstripped supply.
Okay.
And so in addition to the cost going up, there's literally a scarcity of space. So you can't, even if you want to pay whatever the price is, you can't even get a space sometimes on a vessel.
So we have somebody trying to interject. Live broadcast. No worries, Jeff. Well,
Thanks.
all right. So we've got that situation. It's escalating. You've already hit on this next one to a degree, but let's maybe jump into a little bit more depth, because I think this is really where it kind of brings it home for a lot of people. What effect is this having on the operations of promo suppliers and then, the industry more broadly?
Sure. Well, the first thing is price. That I've seen virtually every supplier be forced to increase the price of their goods, both in stock as well as on custom orders. And again, as we were saying, it's the cost of the freight, it's the increased cost of the product. So cost is going up. The timeliness of product. We told our customers we could deliver anything in 90 days via ocean, no problem. We would have the goods ready overseas in 45 or 50 days, a week to get it on a vessel, and 30 days to get it here to the New York area, and clockwork. Now we tell people it's 120 days because we're just not so sure how easy it's going to be to get on a vessel. So it's harder to get vessel space, which then makes it harder for suppliers to resupply. I was on a conference call last week with a group of distributors, and one of the comments was that suppliers have to get more inventory. They have to be ready to order more inventory. Well, I think that the problem is not that suppliers aren't ordering inventory. We are.
Yeah.
In fact, we've ordered literally 50% more than we would normally order, just as a function of trying to have more.
Okay.
And the question is, how fast can you get it? And for us, it's not a function of the factories manufacturing it quickly enough. It's simply a function of moving the goods via ocean cargo.
I think the point you just made is what I would call one of the most fundamental misunderstandings of why we've had the inventory issues that we've had in the industry. I think there's a perception among some, not everybody, but some, that suppliers are skinting on inventory replenishment because they don't want to be overexposed in case there's another downturn from coronavirus. Now, I'm not saying that some haven't done that. There's a lot of companies in our industry, but in talking with many suppliers, including yourself, the reason we're seeing lack of inventory depth is you just can't get the stinking stuff here. It's not that you're not ordering it or if the factory was 20 minutes from you there in Bergen County, New Jersey, you'd have the stuff, right? So it's just a matter of where it's made. You just can't get it here.
The ironic part is that even U.S. manufacturers are having the same kinds of issues, but in a different way.
Okay.
The car companies can't get components for their cars to finish production. I read an article last week about the furniture manufacturers down in North Carolina. They make the furniture here in the U.S., but they import the foam for the cartons to ship, and they can't get foam.
So everything's made. They've made it. They made it here. They're ready to go, but they need the foam.
Yeah. So it's affected everybody.
All right. So I hope that kind of lays out that I think Jeff is in many ways representative, and Jeff's one of the reasons we want to have you on, because I think you are representative of what many certainly good, reliable suppliers are doing, which is trying to get stuff here, but it's just that challenge of actually getting it here.
I also think, Chris, that the product mix has changed. So some suppliers, including ourselves, are moving into products that are more appropriate for this time. So clearly, if you're selling goods for trade shows and for resort wear and events, you're not rushing back and putting in huge inventories for those just yet.
Okay.
But there are new products that fit this time that you just don't want to run out of. I was talking to a colleague in a separate industry, and he sells bicycles.
Okay.
And he said that the bicycle business was up 300% since the start of COVID.
Okay.
And they can't get wheels, they can't get derailleurs, they can't get components fast enough. And of course, once they're done, they can't get them on a boat.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is happening across industries. It is not a promo specific thing. And
No.
we did have a question come in. So let me put this to you. It's from David Salomon, and he asks, do you think that this, meaning that all the supply chain disruption, will lead to a permanent change in ordering, shipping, importing?
A permanent change?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So I would say this. I would say that we're in a new normal, and based on supply and the success of our economy right now, unfortunately, I don't see this situation changing within the next 12 months.
Okay.
So I think that for the next 12 months, this is where we are. So that suppliers then have to figure out how they're going to navigate in this environment. I know for us, one of the things that we've looked to do is take more warehouse space and have deeper inventory and just get it here when we can get it here. So even if we don't need it right now, just order it now so that we have it, because we know if we need it in a rush, it's going to be virtually impossible to get it in a rush.
Okay. All right. Now, I don't know if this is part of David's question, but maybe it was, so I'll ask it as well. Do you think that this leads to some to maybe look a little bit more for, manufacturing closer to home? And I'm not even just talking about potentially made in the USA or made in Canada. Like, do you look to the Americas at all, or there's just the supply chain's not there yet to accommodate that?
That's a really good question. I think, one, lots of the components, even if you manufacture in Mexico or in the Caribbean or South America, many of the components are coming from Asia.
Okay.
That you manufacture with. And then I think it also depends on what category of product. So the product that's easier to manufacture, like cut and sew materials, I think that's more easily moved.
Okay.
But anything that requires a whole chain of sub factories, not only do you have to move the assembling factory, but you have to move everybody else that goes along with it. And I think that that's proven to be difficult. It's funny. I think that was the plan with the tariffs. So we have these 25% tariffs as a function of incentivizing people to move out of China. So what they've done is they've raised prices, and China's never been busier than ever. They can't ship it and make it fast enough. So
there is an irony there.
And the industries, many of the industries, especially the more specialized industries, just have found it too hard to move.
To your point there, you think about some of the techier products or certain hard good products that happen in our industry. They need a component from this factory and a component from that factory and a component, and then it all comes together to another factory where it's actually assembled. So there's a whole network or ecosystem, if you prefer, that happens in China, and on certain of these what you might call higher end or more sophisticated build products that you just can't uproot and move to another country as easily as you might be able to say, hey, okay, I think I can set up a factory making T-shirts in Honduras because I can draw on materials that are still made a little bit closer to there, and it's not as complicated to build, but it's hard to move a supply chain is the fundamental point.
Yeah, I think that's right. And And unless you're such a large user of goods, in many cases, it's virtually impossible.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. And of course, we'll encourage everybody who's listening to this on the live broadcast. If you have more comments and questions, please keep them coming in. Jeff and I will definitely try to answer them. But Jeff, let's go to one other one now. And you've touched on this to a degree. Let's see if there's more to it though. Is there anything that can be done to mitigate some of these issues, both on the supplier side and if you have any ideas on the distributor side as well?
Well, one, if it's possible, distributors need to really communicate to the end user. In the conversations I've had, at least initially, end users don't want to believe that they can't get goods as quickly as they can, or that prices have gone up, and they don't want to hear it. They want to just sort of close their ears and say, "Hey, I need a lower price," and that part's.
If I pretend it's not happening, it's not happening, right?
That part's very difficult. Well, there's always a less expensive item, so that's always an option. But apples to apples, prices are up. In addition, as we get closer and closer to the end of the year and to Chinese New Year, the final straw is Chinese New Year's earlier this year. It's February 1. So many of the factories are going to start to close in mid-January, which is going to really compress the amount of time for people who want spring goods. And it's just going to put that much more pressure on the supply chain.
That's funny because as we sit here chatting, it's what is it, May 3rd, 2002. We're already talking about February 20, or excuse me, May 4th. We're talking about February of next year because that's how far out you have to be thinking.
Yes, we're placing orders now for next year.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, all right. Yeah. You mentioned bringing in more inventory, even though you may not necessarily need it right away. Looking into more warehousing space. Is there any other things like that you're doing, or that suppliers could do to try to mitigate some of this?
Well, it's a very complicated situation as consumers are buying more and more online and less in the store. Warehouse space is becoming more and more premium. Everything is coming on Amazon or Walmart.com. Everything is coming for free, shipping for free. So warehouse space is becoming more and more expensive. If you want office space or retail space, that you can get for a much better deal now.
Sure.
But warehouse space is more expensive. But I think for suppliers, really that's the only answer. That's really the only way we can mitigate what we do. We can order earlier. We can try and get our goods here before we need them, way before, and try and anticipate where we are, and then just hold more inventory. I don't see a way around that. And in terms of the distributor, especially as it relates, I was listening to one gentleman give a Zoom chat last week. And he was telling distributors that they need to make sure when they call the supplier that the goods are physically there, they're not waiting for them to come in, or that they have a little extra time, that they're not as time sensitive because of all the delays. And if it's possible to get your customer to plan a little further ahead, anticipating issues and just trying to avoid them, because the timing is going to be the big issue.
Got it. And I think that's a good bit of education. And I think a lot of good distributors are trying to do that already. I think
they're trying, but boy, it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard to make that happen with the end, because at the end of the day, if that end user is not ready to think about this until July, and they need it in the middle of July, it's just you can only push so much. But I think that point is well made, and I think some of the better clients will be wanting to plan ahead to make sure that they get what they want. So to the extent possible for distributors, I think that is great advice. Try to plan ahead even more than you may have already been in the past.
Yes. Yeah. Especially knowing, that it's just not going to go away. We want it to go away. We hate it. We can't sleep at night thinking about how we're going to, what we're going to try and do. Can we bring goods to a different port? Can we put them on the rail? Can we, what can we do? And virtually every scenario has proven to be very challenging.
All right, and that was a nice segue to what's really kind of my last question. It's a two-part question, and that's, do you think it's going to get even worse over the next few months? And then when do you think it might start to get better? Like, I'll just leave it at that. When do you think it might start to get better?
Well, I can't imagine it's going to get much worse.
Okay.
Right now, in addition to the cost, really the biggest issue is scarcity. So you physically can't get on containers. And the joke in our office is we call this, it's like StubHub. So you book a container and you have a price, and then someone books the vessel and they're 2,000 more. Then you get the call and say, well, you've been they call it you've been either bumped or rolled.
Right.
And if you want to pay, it used to be the premium service, and now it's called diamond service. If you want to pay the diamond service, maybe you can get on.
Okay,
But
maybe.
We've been told through May and half of June that even at any price, it's going to be very hard to get on a vessel.
Okay.
So I would say that it's going to stay difficult throughout the year. There may be some pockets, some weeks or a month or so where things lighten up, but I don't think it's going to change all that much, at least through the balance of this year and into next year. And I think it's going to get even worse again in December, and January will be the most challenging yet.
Okay. Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. So it's maybe not the prognosis that everybody wants to hear, but it is.
Right.
Yeah, but it is a realistic view, and it's something that we have to account for, right? It's something that we.
But it is workable, right?
Yeah.
And probably the greatest thing about our industry is our resourcefulness. How everybody pivoted to PPE when regular promotional products took a sidestep, and hey, if you can't do it this way, you have to do it a different way. Well, I think all of us have learned to be as resourceful as possible, and we're not going to let anything stop us. So if we have to have more inventory, if we have to have plan B or plan C, we'll come up with a plan, understanding the needs of our customers and the needs of our company to succeed. All of us do that. So I don't think anything is going to stop our industry from a really nice recovery. And I think we just have to be even more resourceful than we've been.
Right. That's a really wonderful thought to end on. And is anything else to add to that, or any other takeaways? I think you said it very well.
Well, I don't want to paint too gloomy of a picture. I just want to be in terms of being matter of fact. It's really a challenging time, and it's put all kinds of pressures on everyone. And we just have to understand what the situation is and not try and wish it away. It's real, and it probably isn't going away anytime soon. So if you understand that and you deal with it, we can certainly overcome that.
That's a wonderful thought. And all the momentum we're seeing now in the bigger economy it's going great. It's going in the right direction in a big way, and we're seeing all kinds of recovery. And I think that Q2 for our industry is going to be strong, and 3 and 4 is going to be stronger. And I think that we just as if everybody could acknowledge that on the back end there's going to be these supply issues, but that they're not insurmountable if you do some of these things that you've mentioned, and that just as an industry it's important to keep moving forward.
Sure. And I think that in our case we've been just excitedly surprised at how fast business has moved forward. A lot of the products that we market actually do well in a COVID environment. We saw a lot of outdoor goods. People feel safer outside. So we've been fortunate relative to other people that our goods were not as impacted as others. And those industries, people are busier and like that. I'm sure that's true in the bicycle industry and some of the other industries as well. And as distributors pivot to products that make more sense in this world, in this environment, that they'll figure out which suppliers have inventory and can meet their needs and help them succeed.
All right. Great thought to end on. Jeff, thank you so much for
Thanks,
being
Chris.
with us. This was a really great discussion. I hope everybody got something from it. Thanks again, Jeff.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Bye.